Honourable Member for Don Valley East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak on Bill C-76, an act to amend the Canada's Election Act and other acts. The bill addresses the challenges that the Conservatives created through the Fair Elections Act. And what was the actual challenge? They disenfranchised voters and they denied the use of voter information cards. This measure led to about 400,000 Canadian citizens denied their right to vote in the 2011 election. The Chief Electoral Officer stated that the bill contained measures that undermine its stated purposes and will not serve Canadians well. Bill C-67, therefore, proposes the following measures to make it a fairer process for Canadians to vote. It will make the electoral process more accessible and secure. It will modernize the administration of elections. It will also repeal the portions of the Fair Elections Act that made it harder for Canadians to vote. I am proud to state that the Canadian electoral system is one of the strongest and most robust in the world. However, the Canadian Elections Act is showing its age. Following the 2015 election, the Chief Electoral Officer made over 130 recommendations to improve how our democracy functions. After careful study and consideration by parliamentary committees in both the House and the Senate, and with the input of experts from across Canada, our government has introduced the Elections Modernization Act. Mr. Speaker, this legislation aims to bring Canada's electoral system into the 21st century. Bill C-67 will make it easier for Canadians to vote, make elections easier to administer, but more importantly, it will protect Canadians from third-party interference. The bill is comprehensive, and I cannot cover all of the aspects in this speech. However, I will focus on some key themes. Accessibility. To make the system more accessible for candidates with either children or disability, the bill would allow candidates to pay expenses related to childcare or provision of care to another or a candidate's own disability-related expenses out of personal funds. These expenses would be eligible for reimbursement at an increased level of 90% and would not be subject to the spending limits. Secondly, Bill C-76 proposes measures to reduce barriers to participation by persons with disabilities. Why is this so important to Canadians? These measures are geared to increase support and assistance at the polls. As well, it would increase accommodation to participants in the political debate. Canada is a progressive country, and we would like equal participation of all Canadians. I had an interesting conversation with a cab driver from Croatia. His comment was, "People think that Canada has many sick people, but that is not the case. Canada allows every person with disabilities to participate actively in all aspects of life. Not so in Croatia, where people with disabilities stay at home." Our system may be good, but better is always possible. Therefore, through the bill, the following accommodations will be made. Assistance at the polls is currently only permitted for persons with physical disabilities. The amendment would make it available irrespective of the nature of the electoral's disability, be it physical or intellectual. Secondly, while at the polls, an elector can be assisted by a person of their choosing. This is currently not possible when voting in the returning officer's office. With this amendment, people would be able to rely on the same person for assistance at the polling station. Thirdly, the Act will make transfer certificates available for people with all disabilities, not just physical disability, irrespective of whether the polling station is accessible or not. The proposed amendments will also give Elections Canada a more explicit mandate to explore voting technology for the use of electorals with disabilities. The second area I would like to touch on is the Canadian Armed Forces. In his September 2016 report, the Chief Electoral Office officer made an overall recommendation that the Canadian Elections Act be reviewed to determine the best way to facilitate voting by Canadian Armed Forces. I am proud to say that Bill C-76 provides Canadian Armed Forces electors with greater flexibility in casting their vote while adopting measures to guarantee the integrity of their vote. To achieve this, Canadian Armed Forces electors will be able to choose the voting method that best suits their needs. They will be permitted to receive voter information cards and to vote at advanced polls. Another provision will allow a Canadian Armed Forces elector to use an alternative address for his or her place of ordinary residence for reasons of personal or operational security. I am proud that our government is supporting members of the armed forces. They make big sacrifice for our country, and we need to ensure that they also have the ability to practice their right to vote. The third area I'd like to talk about is the voting service modernization. Mr. Speaker, the proposed legislative amendments to the Canada Elections Act will provide the Chief Electoral Office with more flexibility to adapt processes to conduct elections more efficiently while strengthening the integrity of the electoral process. Some of the measures are providing the Chief Electoral Officer the flexibility to organize tasks at the poll in a way that accounts for local factors, allowing electors to vote at any of the tables in a polling station rather than wait at a specific table assigned to their polling division, opening up advanced polls from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Mr. Speaker, there are very many important aspects to that bill that will mitigate the risks of other things like foreign interference and third-party influence. Currently, we have seen the drama down south, but Canada was not immune to this in 2011 election. In my own riding, there were investigations of robber calls, false information to constituents, and sending them to wrong polls. The bill proposes measures that will help prevent foreign actors and wealthy interest groups using third parties to circumvent the ban on foreign donations. And there are many points that we should study, and the committee should be given the right to study it properly. The Electoral Commission has been given the power to compel testimony, lay charges, enter into compliance agreement, etc. This was not available. In fact, the Electoral Commission was denied a lot of rights in the previous government. Mr. Speaker, there are many other progressive measures included in the Act that my 10 minutes will not allow to address. Democracies are difficult, and it is our job to ensure that democracy survives and flourishes. The proposal allows the Chief Electoral Officer more independent and the right to undertake broad public education campaigns, which was denied by the previous government as well. I hope the members of the House will support it and send it to committee for further enhancements. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Bravo.